Imagina que tinhas 18 anos e eras escolhido para ser o ator principal de um filme que iria ser dos maiores clássicos da cultura pop. Estou a falar do Last Dragon, O Último Dragão, produzido por Berry Gordy, da editora Motown. Hoje tenho a honra de falar com o Taimak, o ator principal desse filme, mais conhecido como Bruce Leroy, um grande artista marcial com um background atípico. Falamos um pouco da sua adolescência, filosofia de treino e histórias de bastidores. Sem dúvida uma inspiração. Estes são os meus heróis. So we're on the air. Taimak, thank you so much for taking this time to speak with me a little bit. So let me ask you something. What can you say already in Brazilian, since you're in Brazil right now?
Oh my God, porra, meio mal.
No, it's not. It's not bad at all. It's not bad at all. So how long will you be in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro?
Well, I've been here a few weeks, and then I'll be leaving to the 35th anniversary of The Last Dragon in New York City at AMC Theater in New York. It's in Times Square, and Demetrius Angelo is a big film enthusiast. He throws this great event that celebrates diversity in the independent action film genre. So it has different people that really love action and martial arts and stunts. They teach choreography, stunts there, as well as screen classic old martial arts movies, and they invite people like myself and Michael Jai White. They've had stars from the classic movie Five Deadly Venoms from the Shaw Brothers movie.
Yeah,
so it's a really great event, and they're celebrating my film November 9th there.
Wow, man. Oh, I wish I could be there. I wish I could be there as a stuntman myself.
Love it.
And growing up watching Bruce Leroy, man, that's great. So how did that movie come about? So you were a martial artist from the get-go. I heard you started boxing with your stepfather. Am I right?
Yeah. Well, my father is Italian. My mother's black from America, and my father's American, but his parents were from Naples, Italy. And what it is when I was a kid, my parents were very young, and it was a really crazy atmosphere back in those days in New York. And my father and mother were really popular with people, and it was kind of bohemian crowd with Andy Warhol, Jimi Hendrix, James Brown, all this mix of artists that are legendary were friends of my mother and father. But there's a great side, because they were also really nice and people, and really great artists. But there was a dark side, right? They had drugs in the community. So it wasn't an atmosphere. My father was a kind of a macho guy, and he was, and this was a time where women's libs started to come into the movement, and they were fighting all the time. And my only way out of the house, was martial arts and fantasy, and I was always watching superhero shows. I come home from school, do homework, and then immediately, sometimes I wouldn't even do homework. I would just go right to watch Superman, Batman. I read all these comic books, and I always dreamed of being a superhero. And when I saw Bruce Lee, I was actually watching a commercial. I think it was in England. It was this. It's funny because I just heard a podcast with Craig Sutton, who runs a page called thelastdragontribute.com, and he's a huge fan of the movie, and it was so amazing to hear him talk in this podcast earlier today. He has an Instagram at the last load on Instagram, and he said exactly the way I felt when I saw Bruce Lee about me. He said when he saw me doing the glow, he immediately was in awe and shock. That's exactly how I felt when I was around 10 or 11 years old when I saw Bruce Lee in the commercial. And that was it. You know, my father got me deeply into martial arts. I started when I was like 6, but then I wasn't really into it till I turned like 12, 13, you know. And that was it. You know, that's what really started the journey with martial arts. And then I ended up getting this movie. I wasn't acting. I was kickboxing.
So you were doing boxing and kickboxing. Those were the martial arts or the sports that you were practicing at the time.
Yeah, karate was first. I would go to a lot of karate because what happened was I started with karate when I was very young. Then we went to Europe, and then we came back, and I started with Aikido at a community center with a really wonderful teacher named Ralph King. But I realized that Aikido didn't implement kicking. And I said to my father, I was around 13 at the time, I said, you know, I want to kick like Bruce Lee. You know, I want to be able to kick a lot. So I asked, you know, I did a lot on my own as a kid because of the chaotic environment at home. So I just walked the streets of New York and found a Taekwondo school. At the time in in the 70s, yeah. There were hardly no karate and martial arts schools. It was very minimal, and they're very traditional style, you know? Yeah. The whole wave of martial arts began at that time because of Bruce Lee. It wasn't a common thing to see a martial arts studio anywhere in the world, you know? Mm-hmm. So Taekwondo, I started because I saw like a 5th floor banner saying Taekwondo. And I asked my father if we can join. He said, yeah. And that was it. I stuck and I was in there every day competing in Taekwondo. And then I wanted to get into full contact karate. So I got with Ron Van Cleef for a while, the Black Dragon. And then I also did kickboxing at a kickboxing studio. They didn't have any in Manhattan. I took a train for about 45 minutes way out into Queens and walked in the winter in the coldest kickboxing studio you can think of. It was no heat. So the instructor was a little ex-military guy from El Salvador. And he was really good at boxing and putting the kicking and punching together. And there were guys in there that were professional fighters that I trained with, Tony Arnaud and ex-boxing champion, Zab Judah's father. I used to spar with him, Yoel Judah, when he would come sometime. So that's my first taste of kickboxing. Then I won a New York State kickboxing championship when I was 18. So that was my teenage years, you know?
Yeah,
and
man.
Then I just jumped around. You know, what can I say?
Yeah, man, it's got to be tough because I remember, I never been to New York, actually, but we see a lot of the old movies. I remember those old Martin Scorsese movies like King of Comedy and After Hours, and now Joker really depicts a really old type of New York City that was much darker, am I right? So it's like there was a lot of criminality, a lot of stuff. I know that you were in a couple of gang fights. What happened, man?
Well, yeah, you're right. I didn't even think about that till you mentioned it. The Joker did depict the dark side of New York. Yeah, that's funny you mentioned that because The Last Dragon was like the light side, how you can see how fun the 80s was, you know?
Yeah, it's like a cartoon picture of New York at the time, right? And
right, the crime was very high.
Yeah, and I realized that a lot of video games that I used to play, not Street Fighter, but I remember Streets of Rage and Final Fight, were always depicting stuff that really looked like The Last Dragon. So I guess you guys made it big. I mean, you guys were a cultural icon of what happened next. And that was so, that was so fun to watch back then. But yeah, it was a lighter side of what was actually happening in the darker side of New York, right?
Yeah, I ended up going through a lot with the powers that be and the Hollywood machine and Berry Gordy and all that. But if I look at the positive side of that, I do see this as a pivotal film in that era. If you think about film before The Last Dragon, with people of color, they were very one-dimensional. Black men were always these bad guys that were courageous and heroic and very cool, but they were very violent. They carried guns and they killed the bad guys, and it was a lot of black exploitation, black on black crime, and white people were the people you couldn't trust, And The Last Dragon was an attempt to show how we're all human,
Yeah.
and show that a person of color that is black can play a humble character that doesn't have to use a gun to kill everybody,
Yeah, and it's the main character, which was always something new at the time as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so when this film came out, it was very cutting edge because they never depicted characters like this way. Very about a spiritual side of martial arts, and layered in a landscape of comedy, and it was cutting edge musically, and also with the culture of being black, Latino, white. The tragedy in it is that when the movie came out, TriStar at the time didn't promote it to any other group than the black audience, because they didn't see this as a film that every race would love. And here we are so many years later. I've made appearances where fans were all white in the audiences, everywhere from, I did appearance in Roanoke, Virginia, Seattle. It was 90% white fans, So it just goes to show you how that limited way of thinking and getting stuck inside this box of labels and tribes stops art from getting out to people.
Yeah, it just comes to show that
because
sometimes
it went up to number 2 in the country. It went up to number 2 in the country, then immediately fell out.
Yeah, I know that
lack of promotion.
It was done on something like $10 million, and it grossed like 26 million. So and it's funny that you said something like in another interview which I saw, you said something like only when it reached TV with HBO or something did people start to notice it, and people loved it. So sometimes it comes to show that we live in a box, and sometimes we want to do stuff and think, oh no, this is just for that audience. I remember another quick.
It was more the powers that be, though.
Oh yeah,
you and I understand, but if you think about the people that control the media, right?
Yeah,
they're trying to sell to an audience.
Yeah, they always want to segment and segment. Time,
yeah, this was a completely different time.
Yeah,
they were afraid to sell this film depicting my character as a humble person of color. That this. People would not absorb that,
Yeah.
And it was a mistake. It was a mistake, because obviously they do, and they underestimate the heart of a human being. A human being obviously isn't perfect, but when you put a meal out and it's they forget about that maybe. Like a kid, I don't like greens, and you cover it up, and then they realize, oh, I like greens, So
yeah.
They, you know what I mean. You get the point.
Yeah. I remember one quick story. I mean, from Seinfeld, George from Seinfeld, Jason Alexander. I saw an interview with him, and the show was about 4 Jewish guys in New York. So they thought at the beginning, I remember on first and second season, he was saying something like, yeah, we thought that only Jewish people from New York would be connected to that series. But when I was on like season 3 or 4, this little black girl went by on a van and she was like, I love you, George. And he was like, what the fuck just happened? I mean, why does that little girl, that little black girl even like or know who I am? So sometimes we ourselves put stuff in a box, or the powers that be, like you said, and it's much more like if it has spirit, if it has a good story, if it has spirit, good characters, if people want to work and they're proactive, I mean, things are going to happen. Things are going to happen for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look at it this way. On the flip side, I grew up watching Superman every day and Batman with white heroes. I didn't say these guys are white.
Yeah, exactly, man.
If I looked at anything, and you listen to music, I don't say this is white. I don't make those separations. I just enjoy the music. It's really racism and all this. Of course, I'm talking about now because it's all hyped out there right now in politics. But
there's a lot of tribalism going on right now. A lot of tribalism, more than ever, I guess.
You can't fight racism until you stop speaking in terms of labels.
Yeah.
Once you start labeling, oh, this person's black, this person's this person's white, Chinese. When it becomes so much like that, then it gives very ignorant people the opportunity to label too. But for example, I represent myself as a person that grew up. I'm interracial. I learn from all cultures, and I am first a human being that aspires to be a better person every day and lives a life of integrity. And that's a personal relationship with integrity in myself. I don't judge you. That's who I am. I don't.
And you can feel that sophistication. You can talk to you just a little bit. Just from talking to you a little bit, I can see that you have that sophistication. And what about that Woodstock? I saw a picture of you, very small, very.
Oh yeah.
You were a baby.
That was
in
my
your mother's.
sister.
Oh, that was your sister.
That was my sister.
Oh, you said that, but it was your mother, right?
I was there, but was my sister. That was my sister with my mother. Yeah.
Oh, that is so funny. I mean, was that a documentary for Woodstock, for the actual Woodstock?
Look, 1969. Look, that was a piece of that era. As you can see, my mother was a fashionista, very spiritual woman, very powerful woman. My father was amazing, powerful guy, very young. They were very young. My father was 19 with him and my mother. It was like two cultures colliding, two passionate, very talented people colliding. My father passed away earlier this year, and my mother's still with us.
I'm sorry to hear that.
My father's with us in a different way. But that is where I believe, if I was to have any current message outside of doing a film, right, is that, look, guys, let's upgrade our realities and live in an environment where we learn how to speak intelligently, because, this vicious cycle will never change until we change,
Yeah, we got to change our perspective. So how was it being cast for The Last Dragon then? You were, what, 19?
Man, just imagine, Bruno. Just imagine somebody comes to Portugal and says, and not somebody, let's imagine Steven Spielberg or some big shot comes in. I don't care.
I'll take that. I'll take that.
Shot. What's a big shot out in your area? Who's a big shot in the creative?
Oh man, most of our references are obviously American, but we have a lot of good Portuguese directors as well. But yeah, let's say a Steven Spielberg so that people can understand what we're talking about. Yeah,
oh my God. He goes, I'm looking for someone who knows martial arts, that likes to have a lot of fun, that, maybe he's a bearded guy and he loves The Last Dragon, Into the Dragon, all those. And he also teaches and he's fun. I want somebody like that. And let's say, Bruno, you're 19 or 18. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to go because people tell you that's you, Bruno.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn to my mother and say, bye, see ya. See you later. Yeah.
You see?
Yeah, of course.
And then when you go, you say, okay, all these other guys, they got beards and they're funny, and you never would think that you were gonna get that role, and then you get it. Oh my God!
Wow. So
and you get to, and your love interest is like the one and only Laura
Vanity.
Charles.
Yeah, Vanity, man. She was
know?
gorgeous. Yeah, of course she was gorgeous.
You see?
Of course, I know everything, man. I know everything about that movie, man. It's funny because even Ernie Reyes Jr. is in that movie as well, and he's now working with Nate Diaz, who's going to fight this weekend. So it's all connected, man. The martial arts crowd is all connected. But it's funny.
Yeah, it was funny because Tony Ferguson, my friend, showed me a post where he posted him training to the Last Dragon music. So all these big athletes, they're really big fans of that one.
Yeah. So they call you, you go. Did you meet Barry Gordy, for those who don't know, who have been asleep for the last years? So Barry Gordy was the president of Motown. So was it him?
He was the chairman of Motown. Yeah.
The chairman, yeah, exactly. So was it him that called you? How did it happen?
No, I was nobody, man. I came from the streets. I was only known in the young crowd because I was competing in martial arts. So I was one of the top competitors in the martial arts, fighting in tournaments and kickboxing. So that's the only reason I was known. But outside of that, nobody knew who I was. So, I didn't get to meet Barry Gordy into a series of calls and failures. And then eventually I came back and tried again and again, and then I got the role, and they fired somebody they thought they were going to hire. So then I met him.
So you went to a casting just like other types of castings. Yeah. How did it happen?
And I did horrible.
Oh, really? You did horrible?
Because I thought it was like a martial arts exhibition.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to throw high kicks,
And they wanted you to act.
They gave me a paper. I never acted in my life,
Oh, really, man?
Yeah.
So how did you get the part then? If you were horrible, how did you get the part then?
I ended up with my father and my best friend. He said, we're going to go to Miami. It was the winter and it's hot there. And my father was selling these women's things, accessories and things like this. He had a girl out there, and we drove all the way to Florida from New York, and on the way, my father basically tormented me, telling me how I didn't know how to read the lines correct because I didn't understand this character, And I was, by the end of the journey, my friend was sitting in the middle between me and my father. He knew I was getting frustrated when my father was like, "Hey, do it again. You did it wrong. Pop me in the back of my head." And I told him I never wanted the role. I'm done with this whole stupid thing. And then he told me, if there's a God on earth, this was written for you. And then that's when we were goofing around, playing around, and just cleaning roofs to make money, and chasing girls at night in Miami, having a good time, playing, saying the lines. When we got back to New York a month or so later, they told me somebody else was hired, and I asked them for another chance to audition. And I blew them away with it, and they gave me the role.
Wow, man, that's an incredible story. Such proactivity, man. And do you have any funny stories that you want to tell, like behind the scenes stories, something funny that happened while you were shooting?
Well, sure enough, Julius was deep. He was he was a great actor. He did a lot of theater. I had no experience, and I had to play the lead. And I know now, and I knew later in the film, in the shooting, when we were basically done, that he really liked me. But he didn't want to show he liked me, so he thought that might show up on screen. He was a little, a serious actor. He wanted to time between us, So it was almost like a guy at school, in high school, that likes you, but he's like, wants to show he's tough, so he doesn't act like he likes you,
Yeah.
So
sure.
I kind of thought he liked me, so every time he came on set, he would be in character,
Oh, okay.
And I would laugh because he'd do funny things, like he would mess with people on set, you know, and tell his goons to start problems. And it was really funny. But when I left, he would say things to me to make me uptight, you know, like real things, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
You must have been very nervous. You must have been very nervous not having the expertise.
No, because I knew he wasn't a real martial artist, so I knew I could kick his ass. Even though he was so tall. He was a basketball player, tall, you know.
Yeah.
But I was at the, you know, so but you know, he's very tall, so it was like I knew he was putting it on to a certain degree, but when we actually got face to face, he got me angry one time. I didn't expect it, but he got in my face, and then I saw him flinch, and then I was gonna hit him. I got to that point, and he ran away, and everybody was, and I chased him for a little bit, you know. Wow, and people say, no, don't do this, you know.
You're gonna ruin your life. You're gonna ruin the whole show, man. Oh man.
Yeah. And he was running. He was tall. His hair bouncing.
Yeah, that I know that they put pads on him because he was so skinny, so they wanted to put pads on him to make it look really tough. Like, show enough. Who's the baddest?
Yeah.
Who's the meanest? Yeah.
But nobody could play that role better than nobody. He was amazing, you know.
Yeah, sure.
He brought the whole soup of beans, man. He was like, yeah.
For sure, man. I know that later on you had a tough time, and you know how these things work and Hollywood, how it works. And I know you had a tough time because they wanted to sign you for a couple more movies for the sequels, but you had a tough time, you know, between you and Berry Gordy and the lawyer, right, and his co-worker.
Man, no, look, it's not a tough time. I'm a young kid, and they basically, you know, were trying to manipulate me, you know?
Yeah.
And it affected me so emotionally, you know, because I thought we were best friends. Like, I didn't know this world, you know? I didn't know anything about the world of Hollywood, you know? So they become your best friends, and then if you don't do what they say, they kick you to the curb. And I didn't see that coming at all, you know? And they're so used to doing that, they thought that I was going to just become this wimpy guy, does anything they say. And when I didn't, they didn't want to talk to me anymore. Mm-hmm. And I was pretty devastated by that because it felt like family. And then in 1 second, the next second, no, we're your enemy. You didn't do what we said.
Yeah.
And then I said, well, I was confused. I said, why isn't this guy ever calling me back? What happened? You know, I don't understand. Why didn't he show up to the meeting? And this other person showed up to the meeting acting really nasty to me. I said, why? She asked acting nasty to me. It was like real. And then I waited outside the hotel to talk to him, and he said, you should have signed, and walked away from me. And I said, what's going on here? And I realized that if you don't follow this way, where they make everything and you make peanuts, that you're done in Hollywood, you know?
Yeah. So why didn't you sign? Ultimately, was it because there was no, in your case, the business was not suitable for you, or were they taking advantage in a certain way?
No, I didn't sign because I was promised that Berry Gordy was going to show up at the meeting by him personally. I was promised by him that he made it like an exciting event. We're going to do all this. And he almost like a father to me. And then he didn't show up, and this other person showed up that was the president of the company, and she didn't even sit down. Me and my attorney was there, and she said, you're not a big deal. The movie just broke even, blah, blah, blah. We lost all money, almost like it was my fault. And then basically said, sign this, and you're lucky to work with us.
Well, that screws up. That even
and
screws
I
up.
was devastated.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, to a little kid, to a young person, to have that sort of energy, that sort of spirit of the movie that was still instilled in you for sure. And then all of a sudden you get this person who says, you're nothing. You're no big deal. I mean, that's got to be very
I was
harsh.
shocked. I didn't know why she was talking to me this way. The attorney was patting me on my leg underneath the table to try to keep me relaxed. But he told me, look, it's a bad deal, but, you know, they should at least give you some option in the future to work with them, but they're not. You take what you take, and he didn't have great negotiating skills. If I was looking hindsight, and I could be the attorney and talk to Taimak, I would have said, look, I know you're really uptight. I know Barry Gordy said this and that, but I'm going to talk to them separately. You just relax. But I think Barry Gordy underestimated the power of his influence over me and how I believed in him as a person, and that how sensitive I was that he didn't show up and I was talked to so negatively. You know,
yeah,
it impacted me so much. It's like almost like your father. I didn't consider him my father, but at that time, me and my father had a tense relationship, and he replaced himself with my father for almost a year of working with him, and or more. It was like like a family member coming to you and say, look, we're gonna just start your whole martial arts career, and then another family member that doesn't like you comes to the meeting and says, you don't know nothing. We gave you martial arts. We gave you everything. You're lucky to be around us. And when I try to reach out to the father image, the guy doesn't talk to me. I was devastated. I was like, what the hell's going on? Yeah.
Oh, man. That's tough to hear. Well, coming back to the movie in a more fun sense, I would really love to know, since the movie is some sort of a video clip as well, and every once in a while it's like the movie stops and everybody starts dancing. We have DeBarge, you have The Glow from Willie Hutch. Which is your favorite movie? If you had to pick one, which is your favorite song? I'm sorry, your favorite song from the movie?
Well, the music was great, obviously, and so many great, from Smokey Robinson on down, Temptations. The Chinese guys were hilarious to work with, and that song "Suki Haki Saki."
Oh yeah,
everybody loves it.
Yeah,
exactly. Hey, my man, what it look like?
So yeah, exactly.
That song is the funniest song, I remember Denise, at the time called a V, Vanity was so excited about her song, and she was very like, you better like it, And now it was such a '80s cheesy song, but the way she did it was so great. She was so beautiful and cute, and young. She was like a kid herself. She was 24.
Yeah,
in a way,
so
she was
young, yeah.
a woman, but still very young. And influential. Yeah, we walked like kids. I was 19.
So if you had to choose one, I'm not going to forget the question. If you had to choose one song.
Sukiyaki-san.
Oh, Sukiyaki-san. Oh, okay, good. Do you think that, I'm having a stupid thought, but nowadays with all this political correctness and stuff, do you think that a movie like that would be considered like, oh, this is cultural appropriation or something like that? Wasn't it the best time to make some sort of
those type
like
of things
that?
are always those kind of things are always dictated by the people who you ask. Me, I think appropriation is more when you say it's your thing. It's like a comedian, right? If one comedian, Billy Crystal the old Billy Crystal tells a joke, right?
Yeah.
Then Kevin Hart says the exact same joke, exactly, without no adjusting it. That's appropriation.
Yeah.
But if he takes the concept, makes it their own, that's not appropriation.
Exactly. That's exactly my point of view. Yeah.
But this movie had an appropriation. This movie was celebrating what were the stereotypes from each culture in a positive way.
Yeah.
The stereotype with black was that they like to gamble, drink, smoke weed, and dance to music. That's a stereotype. Because some blacks are intellectuals that can enjoy music but love classical music as well as anything else in life. And then the stereotype of Chinese, that they walk around with the coolie hat and speak like this, and so they were trying to break that mold, or not break the mold so much, but make fun of the stereotypes, and so you can laugh at it. Everybody knows that nobody's the same, every culture. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, of course, man. That's why it stood the test of time, in my opinion. So, did you, from the point where the movie, when you ended your shooting days, did you keep in touch with any of the actors, or do you still keep in touch with any of the actors nowadays?
Well, they didn't have any internet back then, so that was a different time. So
It was tough.
Trying to remember who. I know Vanny called me a few times, but she was going through a lot. I was going through a lot, obviously, because when you're young, man, and you become like the star of a film, it's really weird because people hate the hell out of you.
Really?
You know?
What do you mean, like envious?
You get people. Yeah, you get people that love you so much, but you get people that just smiling in your face, but they really hate you because they hate the fact that you got to be a character that they maybe want to be the character, or they assume a lot about you and they tell stories about you. Just imagine a 19-year-old, what the hell do you know? You're not perfect and you're running around. So they look for your imperfections and they what do you call it? Magnify them, and that becomes who you are out there on the streets. So teenagers or young people don't understand that. So this is the kind of the happens out there in the community. And then when you go out there in the community, people are looking at you, and it's like if you're in high school and there's a story going on about you, but you don't know anything about the story.
Yeah, yeah.
Why are these people looking? Why are they looking at me like this? I didn't sleep with my girlfriend's best friend. But then, oh, you dirty bastard! You're like,
and one day,
so
like,
yeah.
And one day, like half a year later, you overhear someone saying something,
yeah,
or somebody gets drunk at the party and says,
gay. "What the hell?
Yeah, what?
That's my lover. What? Yeah, that ugly looking guy."
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why you were talking that way to me every once in a while when I saw you. Yeah. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, how things happen. Why do people always have to look at success as if it's something that's derogatory about someone? So you finally made it. You were 19 years old and you finally made it. And you see and you feel that type of envy coming from people
energy.
With your
and
same
then,
background.
But as you get older, you realize that they don't even realize how much I'm used to getting authentic, great energy. And I can smell when someone has animosity towards me for no reason.
Yeah.
And they're smiling at me,
Yeah.
So what's happened is I get so much love, so much from everybody, everywhere I go. It's overwhelming how much love I get. It's amazing. I mean, if I to talk about the positive, that's so amazing. People who don't, who want me to be what they want me to be, and am unhappy with me because I'm not what they want me to be, or are envious of who I am. They're not important to me. It's only important to me are the people that have such great energy.
Yeah.
And I give them, that energy back because, what can be better than to be idolized by someone and for you to say you completely love that they feel that way. If Bruce Lee said that to me, that would be it. I'd say, okay, what's next?
Yeah. Exactly.
Thank you.
Exactly. Yeah. So nowadays, what's a typical day of yours? I mean, you look hardly over 20 years old, man. You're so fit looking. Are you still working out very hard? Come on, tell me the secret.
I tell you what happened, man. It's really hard when you have a bad injury. I never had one so bad. I'm still working my way through it.
What happened?
I didn't address some things that were going on while I was training, when I was strong and everything. But then I had a very bad pull and rip in my side, in the labrum, around the groin, hip, and it's been a 5.5, almost 6-year journey to get to the point where I don't have pain now. I just have some achiness and tight hips. So now I'm at the light at the end of the tunnel. All I need to do is keep stretching to get mobility in my hips, because you can't develop, I lost a lot of strength. I can't develop a lot of strength in my legs until I get the mobility back in my hips. So there's light in the tunnel, because I spoke to 2 different therapists that I've been working with, and they said, yeah, you'll get it back. You just have to be patient. I said, man, it's been almost 6 years. I'm going crazy over here. But you have to accept what it is. The other thing is I have a weakness in my right grip. And when the injury happened, I was playing, I trained, I'm a purple belt with Marcelo Garcia in jiu-jitsu. And I was planning to compete right before I had the injury. And what happened was the grip weakened in my right side. So to really strengthen and really compete in jiu-jitsu, you need good grip. So I'm addressing the hips more than the hand right now, but I really am going to start focusing on the hand. There's light at the end of the tunnel, but I can't say that I train hard every day, because I'm really working on mobility, and the spine is where all these has to be done, being in the cervical spine and lower back, to develop more, neurotransmission between the muscles and the nerves. But I have been meditating on let's say, a year from now, and I'm going to be in a really good place. So I'm really excited.
Excellent. And do you have any dietary habits and any sort of nutrition? Since we're a fitness channel as well, I would like to know, what are your secrets? I mean, what type of foods do you eat? Are you mindful of that?
Yeah, people talk about that all the time to me. I think it's a lot of things, of course. I have my bad days, and when I have my bad days, as far as looking healthy or young, it's really because of a lack of sleep, because of the pains I've had through the injury, waking me up at night, So if one could get good sleep, deep sleep, that is really great. For me, if I get deep sleep 5 hours, I'm happy, but really 8 hours is ideal. So the sleep, nutritionally, minerals and vitamins and minerals are very important. And also, obviously, food, I'm a pescatarian, but that's not for everybody. Some people need to eat meat. That's their journey. But with me, I really listen to my body. If my body, something good could be on the table to eat, but if my body says don't eat that right now, I won't eat it. I take amino acids because if I'm not getting enough protein, I wasn't doing it for a while, and I realized that sometime I would miss my daily requirements of protein, and that slowed my recovery down with the healing. So I realized that was a big mistake in not taking amino acids in this healing process. It's very important, and when you train, it's very important. If you're not eating a lot of products.
It's all a game of numbers when it comes down to it. So how was your experience? Experience working or training with Marcelo Garcia? Were you thinking that maybe you were lacking some sort of grappling, or did you find it by accident and then started to have fun with it?
What happened was I'm very competitive, and I was more sparring with boxing and kickboxing and young, strong guys, and I was doing well. But I said, you know what? These guys are competing or going to be competing. If I continue this, I'm going to get hurt.
Yeah, yeah.
Because,
striking is fucked up. Yeah.
Well, the thing was, I knew more than them, but when I go hard with them, I'm doing very well. But my interest in competing professionally wasn't where they were. And I knew at some point they're going to be able to match me athletically, and then I'm going to get hurt. So I said to myself, I can get that competitive edge in jiu-jitsu. So let me make a transition. I can still train, casually with sparring and kickboxing, boxing, but I can really push it with jiu-jitsu. Yeah.
Ty, I want to thank you so much for being a great sport and for taking the time to speak to me a little bit. So you're a child hero of mine, obviously. So you're one of my idols. So I'm very happy about this. And what I find is that sometimes you go and you try to search for your idols from the 80s, from the 70s and whatnot, and you don't have a lot of materials on them other than the movies. So I'm going to ask you this, and I'm going to give you a hint from a young kid like me. So why don't you create your YouTube channel with your tips?
That's a good thing that I can start looking into. I have an agent, just so you know, anybody that has any business inquiries, they can email S. Kaufman, SKUFMAN at Buchwald, BUCHWALD.com.
Okay.
Follow me on Instagram, IAMTAIMAK on Instagram. But that's a great idea.
Tips by Bruce Leroy. Would it be any better? It doesn't get any better than this. Just I don't know, just like basic stuff from the beginning, like how to stance in a fight, how to do this, how to do that, with a couple of jokes in between. That would be so great, man. That would be incredible. I don't know. That's just my idea.
I'm down.
You're down? Okay, man. And I'm going to wait for you in Portugal. You said that you were going to be in Europe soon. So you're now in Brazil. So one of these days you got to come to Portugal. You got to work out together and do a couple of things together.
Love
okay?
to.
Ty, thank you so much once again. Yeah,
Wish
man.
Everybody out there a great time. Definitely love to meet everybody. And all the best to everyone.
Thank you, man. Obrigado. See you soon, buddy. Thanks.
Keith Cook is one of the brightest new stars in the world of martial arts films. Here he is doing a triple kick in his film debut, China O'Brien.
I got started back in about 1973 when I saw Enter the Dragon.
Can you imagine, Keith, what that does to the brain of a little child who's already into martial arts? So I was like,